I need you to understand something before I tell you this story. I am not a superstitious person. I am not religious. I do not believe in ghosts. I spent 11 years in medical school and residency training my mind to see the world exactly as it is: biological, mechanical, explainable. I believe that completely. Right up until the morning I saw Margaret Chen walking down the hallway of my hospital. Margaret Chen had died in my care 6 hours earlier. I had signed her death certificate myself. I had spoken to her family. I had watched the orderlies wheel her body to the morgue. And yet there she was, standing at the end of the corridor in her hospital gown, looking directly at me, completely still. I told myself it was exhaustion, a stress response. 31 hours without sleep playing tricks on a brain that should have known better. I was wrong, because Margaret Chen was only the first. My name is Dr. Daniel Reeves. I practiced emergency medicine at St. Augustine Medical Center in Portland, Oregon for 9 years. I am no longer practicing. I want to tell you who I was before all of this, because I think it matters. I was good at my job. That is not arrogance. It is simply the truth. I had a gift for emergency medicine, the ability to stay calm when everything around me was chaos, to see clearly under pressure, to make the right call when the wrong call meant someone died. I like that about myself. I like being the person who could handle the worst moments of other people's lives without falling apart. My colleagues respected me. My patients trusted me. My department head described me in my last annual review as one of the finest emergency physicians he had worked with in 30 years. That review was written for months before I lost my mind. And this is what I still cannot resolve, even now, for months before I started seeing things that nobody else could see. It started in February 2020. The hospital was under pressure. It was the beginning of the pandemic. The wards were filling. The staff were stretched thin. I was working double shifts regularly, 60, 70 hours a week. I tell you this not as an excuse but as context, because the rational explanation, the one my psychiatrist would later offer, the one I desperately wanted to believe, was that what I experienced was a stress-induced psychotic episode. Exhaustion, cortisol overload, a mind pushed past its limits manufacturing images to process unresolved grief. I want to believe that. I cannot, because of what happened in the end, because of what she told me, but I am getting ahead of myself. Margaret Chen was 67 years old. She came to my emergency department on a Tuesday night in February with chest pain that turned out to be a massive myocardial infarction, a heart attack of the kind that gives almost no warning and almost no time. We worked on her for 40 minutes. It was not enough. I pronounced her at 11:47 p.m. I sat with her family for 20 minutes in the family room, her daughter, her son-in-law, her teenage grandson who kept staring at his hands. I said the things you say. I meant them. I always meant them. Went back to work. There were 4 other patients waiting. At 5:30 a.m., 6 hours later, I walked out of a trauma bay, and she was standing at the end of the corridor. I stopped walking. My chart slipped out of my hand. I heard it hit the floor. I did not pick it up. She was wearing the hospital gown she had died in. Her feet were bare on the linoleum floor. She was standing perfectly still, 40 feet away, looking directly at me, with an expression I could not name, not threatening, not distressed. Something quieter than that. Something patient. I stood there for what felt like a very long time. Then a nurse walked past me, between me and Margaret, and I blinked, and the corridor was empty. I picked up my chart. I went to the bathroom. I ran cold water over my wrist the way my mother taught me when I was a child and couldn't sleep. I looked at myself in the mirror and said out loud, "You have been awake for 31 hours. Go home." I went home. I slept for 10 hours. I woke up and ate, and felt completely normal. I went back to work the next day, and told myself it was over. For 11 days, it was. Then on a Wednesday afternoon I was walking through the parking structure to my car, and a man fell into step beside me. I glanced over. It was Robert Okafor, 54 years old, construction worker. He had come to my department 3 weeks earlier with a traumatic brain injury from a fall. We had done everything right. It had not been enough. Robert Okafor had been dead for 19 days. He was walking beside me, in the parking structure, matching my pace exactly, looking straight ahead. He was wearing the clothes he had been brought in wearing, work boots, jeans, a gray sweatshirt with a small tear at the collar. I remembered that tear. I noticed details like that. I stopped walking. He stopped too, turned and looked at me. Then he opened his mouth, and said, in a voice that sounded exactly like a voice should sound, not ghostly, not distorted, completely normal, "You need to check room 412. Then he was gone. I stood in that parking structure for 5 minutes unable to move. Then I went back inside. Room 412 was occupied by a patient named Harold Sims, 72 years old, admitted 2 days earlier for observation following a minor stroke. Stable, routine, I went to room 412 and reviewed Harold Sim's chart. His medication dosage had been entered incorrectly in the system, a decimal point error. The dose he was scheduled to receive in 40 minutes would have caused a fatal cardiac event. I corrected it. I stood outside his room for a long time. Then I went to find the chief of psychiatry, Dr. Sarah. It was after midnight. The ward was quiet. I was charting at the nurse's station when I felt that familiar change in the air, that specific stillness that preceded them. I looked up. Margaret was standing on the other side of the station. Closer than any of them had come before, near enough that I could see the fine lines around her eyes, the small gold cross she wore at her throat that I remembered from the night she died. I did not look away this time. "Margaret," I said. My voice was completely steady. After 11 encounters I had found a strange calm in these moments. She looked at me. "Who are you warning me about?" I said. That was always the question. That was always why they came. She shook her head. My breath caught. In 11 encounters, they had always been there to warn me about someone else. Always a direction, a patient, a problem to solve. The shaking of her head, the first time any of them had declined to answer, meant something different. "Then why are you here?" I said. She looked at me for a long moment, and then she did something none of them had ever done before. She pointed at me. I felt the blood leave my face. "I don't understand," I said. She kept her eyes on mine, and in the way that they sometimes communicated, not words exactly, but meaning arriving fully formed in my mind, I understood what she was telling me. Not a warning about a patient, a warning about me. I left the nurse's station. I walked to the bathroom. I rolled up my left sleeve. There was a mark on my forearm that had not been there yesterday. Small, irregular border, the specific dark coloration that 11 years of medical training had taught me to recognize immediately. I stood there looking at it for a long time. I photographed it. I sent the photograph to a dermatologist colleague at 12:47 a.m. with a message that said, "I need you to look at this first thing tomorrow, please." His reply came at 7 a.m. "Daniel, come in today, now if possible." The biopsy confirmed it 48 hours later. Melanoma, caught by the narrowest possible margin, at a stage where it was still fully treatable. The dermatologist told me I was extremely lucky, that another few months and the conversation would have been very different. I did not tell him why I had looked. I resigned from St. Augustine Medical Center 3 weeks later. I told my department head it was burnout. He did not argue. Burnout was everywhere in 2020. He wished me well. We shook hands. I have not worked in a hospital since. I am alive because a woman who died in my care 6 hours after I met her came back 14 months later to tell me to check my own arm. I do not have an explanation for that. I have stopped looking for one. I see a therapist twice a week. She is good at her job, and she has helped me build a life that functions. I consult, I teach, I sleep more than I used to. I have not seen any of them since the night Margaret pointed at me, not once in 3 years. I think, and I want to be careful about how I say this, I think they were not haunting me. I think they were using me, not maliciously, in the way that you might use the only tool available when something urgent needs to be done. I was the only one who could see them, so I was the one they came to. Whether that says something about me, or something about them, or something about the nature of consciousness after death, I genuinely do not know. I am a physician. I deal in what can be measured, what can be tested, what can be proven. None of this can be proven. All of it happened. What I know is this: 11 people are alive today, who would not be, if I had not listened, if I had taken the medication, accepted the psychiatric explanation, closed my eyes to what I was seeing, and I am one of them. I kept Dr. Okonkwo's record, every encounter, dated and detailed. Names, what they said, what I found, outcomes, 47 pages. I have shown it to 2 people. Both of them are physicians. Both of them read it in complete silence. Neither of them has spoken to me about it since. I think some things are too large to fit inside the explanations we have built for the world. I think Margaret Chen knew that. I think she came back anyway. I think that was the kindest thing anyone has ever done for me. This has been a DeStories production. If this story made you question everything, good. That means you were paying attention. Subscribe to DeStories for true horror every single week. Hit the bell. Share this with a doctor you know. And comment below. Do you believe the dead can warn us? Have you ever had an experience you couldn't explain? I read every single one. Good night.